Hello there, we're live from our studios in Kukumlimle. We're on digital address GA0992539. This is your home of fearless, credible and independent journalism. Our lead stories this hour. 5 different cases being tried by the state in connection with illegal mining as government's war against the illegal trade rages on without mercy, especially on excavators. We have details from the Information Ministry on exactly who is being tried for galamsey. And rescue efforts still underway after more than 24 hours of trying to find some 8 people feared dead in an illegal mining pit in Barney, which caved in the Upper East region. We're live in the area. A Ministerial State Designate for Finance Ministry says the controversial Ijapa deal is part of government's efforts to ensure Ghana beyond aid. He's been defending his appointment at the vetting. 4 other deputy ministers, ministerial nominees are expected there. Nominee for Land and Natural Resources is on at the moment. We'll be live from there as well. And the Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. Join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. We're streaming live on YouTube and on our social media handles. Interact with us on 0540109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is the Pulse. Please be my guest. A video of excavators being used to help drain a mining pit at Barney in the Upper East region, where police and municipal authorities are racing against time to rescue some galamsey miners who are trapped in there. The miners are suspected to be trapped in the mining pits, which became flooded last night following heavy rains. Officials say the water in the pit has so far been drained, while the rescue team is in the process of ascertaining the number of bodies trapped in it.
On that note, we want to actually support them in the rescue operation, provide security for the area. The police and the security agencies must support the cause of Ghana because it is about saving of life and property, or protection of life and property. And that is the reason why we are here. Having gone around and look at what is going on, we are satisfied with the rescue operation that is ongoing. The regional security coordinator is here, NADMO is here, the Ghana Police Service is here, the Association of the Small Scale Miners Association in the Upper East region is also here, and they are doing their best. They also have support from their external partners who are doing massive operation in terms of drawing of waters from the pits. And we think that by the time the operation is over, we'll be able to determine the real situation as to whether there are casualties or there are no casualties. As of now, the assumption is that there are missing persons. But to be able to determine whether it is 1, it is 2, it is 3, the rescue operation, when it is finished, we'll be able to confirm that. But so far, we are satisfied. We are also looking beyond the rescue operation. The rains.
Let's go on the lines now and speak with Albert Sori, who is our correspondent in the Upper East region. Hello, Albert. Albert, let's start with the latest on the ongoing rescue efforts.
They just arrived about 5 minutes ago. He's being taken on a tour of this area, and some of the small-scale miners have selected a leader who is taking him around, trying to explain to him how they feel this accident would have happened. So that's happening now. At the moment, they are still pumping the water out of the underground tunnels, because what we are learning is that even though they went in through a pit, there are several underground tunnels in there. So all these tunnels are covered in water. That's why it is taking so much time for the water to be pumped out before they can maybe locate where these miners would be.
Albert, I'm having a difficulty hearing you clearly. But if I heard what you said, you're saying the water, the draining of water from the pit is still ongoing. At the moment, they have not found anybody yet. That's correct?
That there's underground tunnels.
And yes, and that there are several underground tunnels over there, which is why it's taking a bit more time. Hello, Albert. Looks like I'm having a hard time with Albert Story's line, but those are visuals coming to you from the Upper East region today. They are trying to find some 8 people who are believed to have been trapped in a pit, a galamsey pit. As Albert says, there isn't just one tunnel. There seem to be several tunnels beneath the ground, which is why it is taking some time. They're expecting to find some 8 people who have been trapped in there. So far, none has been found as yet. Albert, let's try this again. Hopefully we can get through. Give us more information about who these people may be, according to eyewitnesses or people in the neighborhood who know them. I've lost Albert, sorry, but we're not going away from the story as yet. Let me bring you other stories. We'll return to this subsequently when we get Albert to give us more information. Now, government says it is currently prosecuting 5 different cases in connection with illegal mining. Government has waged a war, as you know, on illegal mining, conducting a number of operations with the military. In the latest phase of the fight against galamsey, a number of military personnel have been deployed to destroy equipment of illegal miners around water bodies. With providing an update on government's fight against the menace, Information Minister Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah noted that these 5 cases include the case against some alleged national security operatives who were arrested in the Kede forest engaging in illegal mining, and then some other cases against Chinese illegal miners and their Ghanaian accomplices.
The first is the Republic versus George Asante and 31 others. These are the persons who initially, the reports that came out were that some national security people have been arrested doing mining elsewhere. It turns out they are not national security persons. The accused persons on the 11th of May 2021 were arraigned before the Koforidua Circuit Court B on provisional charges, namely 2 counts of conspiracy to commit crime, that's reconnaissance for minerals, and reconnaissance for minerals without lawful authority. The accused persons were arrested by the town folk themselves, as you remember. They had dug deep, hundreds of meters into the ground, and they were actually conducting some mining activities there without lawful authority. They were remanded into police custody for further investigations. The case has been adjourned to the 8th of June 2021 with the accused persons still in custody. In the meantime, the CID has taken over the investigations. They visited the crime scene at Akinting. Sand and some substances suspected to be gold were found and seized. The substances have been sent to the PMMC for testing, and the other state investigative authorities are assisting them while the prosecution ongoes. So that is the case of George Asante and 31 others, the Republic versus George Asante and 31 others. There's the Republic versus Yang Mauji. Arrest was made on the 15th of May by the Operation Halt team. Investigations are also ongoing to locate some suspected accomplices, Yang Kesi and one Nana Fianko, and prosecutions will be in accordance. There's a Republic versus Wei Ganming and another. This case involves a Chinese national arrested from Atioku in the Menfi West near Takwa. The 2 Chinese nationals were arraigned before an Accra Circuit Court for the offense of mining without authority or without license. They've been remanded to appear on the 2nd of June 2021. I think that's today. So they'll be appearing in court today after initially being remanded. The matter has been assigned to the CID. Bail has initially been denied the accused persons, and further investigations continue, and prosecution will also continue in accordance. There's also the Republic versus Yang Hua and 2 others. In this case, 2 Chinese nationals and a Ghanaian who were illegally mining were arrested from Inchi in the Western region. They were arraigned before the Circuit Court in Accra on the 12th of May 2021 for the offense of mining without license.
Well, that's the Information Minister giving us details of who they have arrested, what is being done, as well as far as prosecution is concerned. We'll return to this story shortly, and we'll hear from the Defense Minister, Dominic Nitiwul, whose men, by the way, are on the ground. I'm talking about the military. But let me try and reach Albert Sori again for details on that Galamsey pit, that illegal mining pit that has collapsed, believed to have trapped about 8 of the illegal miners. Hello, Albert.
Hi, Gifty.
Albert, let's start this over. You were telling us about the process, the rescue efforts. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what we realized when the police commander and the regional minister who just arrived, when they talked to the miners, is that they have this that they created, which they go underground. Now, each one of these pits is like, from outside, it's a square. Each is about 2 meters. So when they go through that pit and go underground, there are several tunnels in there. And the miners then choose which of the tunnels they go to mine. So the fear is that all these tunnels are covered in water. So even if they are able to pump all the water out, it will take time before they locate which tunnel exactly the miners went to. So that is why it is taking a bit of time. At the moment, they are still pumping the water. In fact, about an hour ago, they had to get a different machine, a bigger pumping machine from the Shanxi Mining Company to come and help with the pumping of the water. But what we know is that there is a stream which is running through the western side of this mining pit. And the pit through which the water went is just close to the stream. Now, the miners are suspecting that the road construction that is going on blocked the waterway, because there's a place where we have a culvert where the water is passing, but it is narrow. So they are suggesting that because of the narrow nature of the culvert, when the downpour came out this mine and went in, and the miners didn't have enough time to detect it and be able to escape. At the moment, one of their leaders, Robert Sampour, is taking the minister through the area to try and explain to him how this accident could have happened. One of the things he's telling us is that they suspect, based on the information they've gathered from the people who were around at the time that the other miners went in, that there could be up to 7 people inside the pit. That is what he says. He cannot say it categorically, but this is the information they have. And until they are able to get in there and find out if these people are still alive or if their bodies are there, they cannot say for sure. But they suspect up to 7 people could be inside this mine. Again, one of the things we gathered from the people around is that there are bikes which are around, which they cannot find the owners of these bikes, and they suspect that the owners could also be part of the people who went underground. Others have said that there were some other miners who were outside and tried to go at the time of the flooding. And some of these people went in. Albert,
Albert, so take it for us again from the 7 people. You said that they expect that 7 people are
trapped. Yeah, so I'm saying that one
here.
of the leaders of the small-scale miners here says that based on the information they've gathered from those who were around at the time the other miners who are suspected to be trapped went in, based on this information, they suspect that there could be up to 7 of them who are inside the pit right now.
Okay.
But he cannot say that categorically until they are able to find the bodies or find these people if they are still alive. That is what he is saying.
Okay.
But there are others who have said that apart from those who went into mine, there were others who went underground to try and warn those who were there at the time of the flooding. And they are claiming that some of them could not come out after going in to warn the others. So we are just waiting to see how this turns out. What we are also learning is that even if they are able to pump this water out, chances are they may not be able to find the bodies today because it will take a bit of time. And for safety reasons, somebody was even suggesting to them that because there was so much water, it's very loose. And so whoever even goes in there to try and find the bodies may not be safe. So these are the bits and pieces of information we've gathered from this year as the rescue efforts continue.
Robert, and the explanation has been that the rains have caused this largely.
I didn't hear that.
Albert, I'm saying that the explanation has been that the cause for this is largely the rains.
Actually, the heavy downpour, there's a road construction going on. In fact, the road has been here for 2 years and nothing like this has been experienced. But they are suggesting that there's a culvert which has been which have been passing there into a stream of the road.
Albert, I understand the difficulties you're facing there, but I believe that we get the message at this point. Let's not stress you any further. We'll wait for a report subsequently. Albert, sorry, they're struggling really to give us the information, probably because of the network. But Albert indicates that this is it's about 2 meter square pit. And in that, you find several tunnels. It is believed that these miners had gone through the tunnels, and it's difficult to find which tunnel they went through. Now, what the rescue efforts is aimed at, essentially, is to find which tunnel they're in. So they're draining out the water so they can get to those who are believed to have been trapped there. There's also a stream there, and they believe that the culverts are narrow, making it difficult for the water to flow and making it difficult to get this rescue work over and done with. 7 people are feared trapped in this particular pit. Albert, sorry, we'll bring us more, I beg your pardon, subsequently. We're still staying on illegal mining. Minister for Defense, Dominic Nitiwul, has been announcing that 592 items, including 24 excavators, 341 chamfan machines, as well as 123 water pumping machines, were seized and destroyed in the second phase of Operation Halt. A little over 400 personnel drawn from the armed forces were deployed to the areas around the river and Cobra in the western region to stop illegal miners from continuing to pollute the water. Dominic Nitiwul also spoke at the news conference to give an update on the military's operations there.
It was observed that some illegal miners had moved their mining equipment, particularly excavators, to just nearby communities. So you are passing and you can see huge excavators standing in communities. But they've moved them out of the 100-meter zone. But you can see that this is a little community, and then you have 10, 20 excavators standing there. You know that they were using to do illegal things, but because it's not within the 100 meters, you cannot destroy them. So the armed forces will pass and move on. We need to take a decision about some of these things as a government and as a people. So like I said, that some illegal miners had moved their mining equipment, particularly excavators, to nearby communities that were out of the speculated 100-meter limit of operational activity for major river bodies. For instance, there's a community called Esua. Troops chanced upon 11 excavators that have been moved 2 kilometers away from the illegal mining site along the river and Cobra, with the possibility, of course, of illegal miners redeploying the equipment at an opportune time. So that's what happened. You go and see these excavators standing there. They had just moved them. They could clearly see that they had destroyed the river bodies. But what they did is to move them off from there. We will take a decision on this equipment. We will take a decision very, very soon on them, because we know they will want to go back. But because we set 100 meters, they have decided that, okay, we're going to move them to 2 kilometers away, 1 kilometer away. But we will take a decision on them very, very soon. Like I said, it's in their interest not to go back. But if you decide to park your excavators there and they have no use, we will take a decision on them as a government.
Dominic Nitiwul is Defense Minister. He also explains that some excavators were seen in communities close to water bodies, and a decision, as you heard him say, will be taken soon on destroying such excavators. Let's hear more of that from him.
It was observed that some illegal miners had moved their mining equipment, particularly excavators, to just nearby communities. So you are passing and you can see huge excavators standing in communities. But they've moved them out of the 100-meter zone. But you can see that this is a little community, and then you have 10, 20 excavators standing there. You know that they were using to do illegal things, but because it's not within the 100 meters, you cannot destroy them. So the armed forces will pass and move on. We need to take a decision about some of these things as a government and as a people. So like I said, that some illegal miners had moved their mining equipment, particularly excavators, to nearby communities that were out of the speculated 100-meter limit of operational activity for major river bodies. For instance, there's a community called Esua. Troops chanced upon 11 excavators that have been moved 2 kilometers away from the illegal mining site along the river Ankobra, with the possibility, of course, of illegal miners redeploying the equipment at an opportune time. So that's what happened. You go and see these excavators standing there. They had just moved them. They could clearly see that they had destroyed the river bodies. But what they did is to move them off from there. We will take a decision on this equipment. We will take a decision very, very soon on them, because we know they will want to go back. But because we set 100 meters, they have decided that, okay, we're going to move them to 2 kilometers away, 1 kilometer away. But we will take a decision on them very, very soon. Like I said, it's in their interest not to go back. But if you decide to park your excavators there and they have no use, we will take a decision on them as a government.
Well, what are your thoughts? I want to hear from you. The WhatsApp number is 0540109009. Let's talk. But right now, I'm taking you to Parliament, where the Deputy Minister Designate for Lands and Natural Resources, Benito Owusu-Bio, is having his turn before the committee. He's supposed to come and help deal with this situation. Let's hear him now.
The more elephants we have, the better for Ghana.
Yeah, when you see that animal, you are frightened. Even you run. Thank you, Chairman.
Very well. I am supposed to close. I didn't have a question, but Honorable Muntaka walked in late, and he wants to find out what you did, or what use did you put the drones the ministry acquired to fight galamsey. What did you use those drones for?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the drones were procured by the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. They were never at the disposal of our ministry. As we speak now, they are yet to be returned, and once we receive them, we will use them as we deem fit.
Very well. I have no question of my own. I only gave a favor to Honorable Muntaka because he came in late. So, very well. I'll allow you one more question. After doing one for you, can I ask one question?
Chairman, you know today we are managing from the chamber to the committee. And the two leaders, sometimes it's difficult for all of us to be at the same place. I wanted to find out from the Deputy Minister nominee. They set a target of 23rd June 2021 to return a lot of lands to their appropriate stools. We are just some few, maybe 3 weeks away from the set date. And he was there, very active, Deputy Minister. Where have they reached with this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we did not set the date that the honorable member is talking about. But then, you know, the new Lands Act, what it said was that 6 months after coming into being, of this act, the Lands Commission will take steps to recommend through the minister to the president for the divesting of some vested lands in the north and other parts of Ghana. So the process is ongoing. What the act said was that steps must be taken. As we sit here now, those steps are ongoing. I have been informed by the minister.
All right. Thank you very much. Honorable Benito Zubio, thank you for attending upon the House to answer questions. You'll hear from us later. For now, you're discharged. Thank you for coming to support your...
Looks like we went in rather at the tail end, but certainly Joseph Opoku Gakpo is our parliamentary correspondent. He's standing by, who bring us details of how it all went down. And we have some highlights for you as well from the previous vetting of the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Edubwahin there. You're watching The Pulse with me, Gifty Ando-Apia. Why don't we take a short break right now? We return with some more stories. To stay with us. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. In 2019, China experienced an epidemic. Many were reporting of pneumonia-like infection, which later turned out to be the COVID-19. As the disease spread across the world, the WHO declared it a pandemic. Ghana was one of the many countries that experienced the shock of having to deal with a pandemic unprepared. COVID-19 exposed gaps within the country's health system. But it is not the only epidemic which has exposed our readiness or otherwise to deal with epidemics. There is the annual outbreaks of cerebrospinal meningitis, CSM, and related deaths each year. Joining us for this conversation is Dr. Franklin Asiedu-Bekwing, Director of Public Health, the Ghana Health Service. He was in charge of disease surveillance at the time Ghana recorded its first 2 cases of COVID-19. He's well grounded for this conversation. Also, Doc, thank you very much for your time. Dr. Bekwing, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, I also have connecting with us via Zoom Dr. Ernest Kenu, who is a senior lecturer, Department of Epidemiology and Disease Control at the University of Ghana. He has a number of books and research in the area of our conversation to his name, including field epidemiology, that is the use of geographical information systems in investigating outbreaks, etc. He'll be joining us much shortly. But let's begin with Dr. Bekwing. Doc, thank you very much. First of all, let me start by taking your overview of how we have done so far, you know, comparing, of course, with how the best countries have handled it.
Thank you very much. Let me say that as a whole, I think that Ghana is not doing bad in terms of how we have handled this pandemic. If you look at the situation that we are in terms of numbers, in terms of deaths, in terms of people at the hospitals, we can see that we are reasonably doing much better than some of the well-developed countries, because we actually appreciated the extent or the disruption that can follow the outbreak, and we responded quite early. There were a number of initiatives that we started in Ghana that reasonable countries, even well-developed, never thought of. We started doing pooling of tests, we started doing contact tracing, and reasonably a number of people were not doing it. If you look at the emphasis of our strategy, we looked at it along certain thematic areas. And basically, that's what WHO does. So we respond to pandemics or epidemics along the line of thematic areas. So you have coordination, you have surveillance, you have point of entry, you have lab, you have case management, you have risk communication, you have finance, you have security. So those are the blocks that countries use. And we have been using these structures over the years. So it is not COVID that allowed us to implement these things. Let me say that Ebola was a stepping stone that countries were supposed to get themselves prepared. So we were prepared, but let me say that COVID has its own dimensions that took us off guard. But I'll say that somehow we've come back and we are on course. So I think that as a country, we are not doing bad. Even if you want to look at even the vaccination that we are doing now, you see, Ghana was selected as the first country for COVAX, not by chance. It's because we have a very robust vaccination program in the country. So people want to demonstrate that countries must succeed. So Ghana was selected that we should use it. So if you really look at currently now, we have received over 1.3 million doses of vaccines, and we have deployed over 92%. There are countries that are deploying less than 5%, 4%. Just 2 weeks ago, Cote d'Ivoire came to Ghana to learn from us. So clearly, Ghana is not, I would say, is the ultimate, but Ghana at least knows what it's doing.
Knows what it is doing. That's how you put it. I'll take Dr. Kenu's thoughts on this one as well when he joins us, but unfortunately, I don't have him at this moment. What then, Dr. Bequin, from your perspective, must we do to prevent or to manage future outbreaks? I know that there are certain measures that we've put in place at the moment. Can you review these measures we've put in place and tell us whether or not, I know you've already said we're doing well, but let's look at, let's look at it from a very realistic perspective, reviewing the measures we've put in place to whether or not it fits our plans or our readiness when it comes to another outbreak, should we encounter any.
So in that case, you try to look at it also on the lines of the thematic areas. So you say coordination. So coordination, you ask yourself, do you have a coordination set up in the country? A coordination is at level. So you have coordination at the national, regional, and district. At the national level, we have a task force. But prior to even COVID, we have what they call the Ministerial Coordinating Committee. So this is a committee that exists and that gives oversight of public health emergencies in the country. When we had COVID, because of its destructive nature, it was raised up. So now you have the task force being chaired by the president himself and then the vice president as a co-chair. So that gives the coordination setup that exists. If you go to the regions, we have what they call the public health emergency management committees. And these committees are actually chaired by the regional minister. In the case of the district, it's the district chief executive. So you need a political craft to be able to have oversight of pandemics or outbreaks. And that is a setup that exists. So that's the coordination setup that exists in the country. And let me stress that it's not COVID that brought about these structures. We are running what they call the IDSR, and that is the setup. So we go to the next one, which is about port of entry. That is a challenge. Ghana has about 50 approved port of entries, but not all of these port of entries have basically manned port health staff. So in that case, how do you ensure that you have integrity at the port of entries? So what we try to do over the period is that we rely on others like the immigration, national security, to kind of complement what our port staff do at these areas. So when we had, let's say, COVID, the issue was the first cases are going to come for the airport. At the early stages of the outbreak, it was how ready is the airport? And at that time, we were using these non-contact thermometers, we have the scanners. But let me be clear, you can never stop COVID from entering your country. But we try to put in measures to see whether we can detect it. We did a lot of tests at the early stages, but we could not detect COVID at the borders until COVID entered. Then if you enter your country, you need to have a surveillance system. The surveillance system, you use it based on your case definitions. So let me say that we were able to detect our first 2 cases in country quite early. And then later on, I'll say that the cases cascaded. If you go to the lab, one of the things that you need as a country is your detection. So luckily, we have 2 main labs in the country. We have the Gucci, that KCCR. That helped us to detect our first 3 cases. 2 were detected in the Gucci and 1 in KCCR. But it was not enough. So going forward, we said, let's expand our testing capacity. So now as I speak, we have almost about 40 labs that are actually doing COVID testing, and about half of them are private. So in terms of lab capacity, we have expanded. If you go to case management, where are we managing cases? We started only 2 places. We had Tema, we had Rich. These 2 facilities had only 14 bed capacity. And then how can you manage a pandemic? So with time, we had to expand. And let me say the private sector has been very generous. We have built up this infectious disease center. So now as I speak, we have 73 treatment centers across the country. Then we also need to look at isolation. Ghana has never had a situation whereby we manage cases based on isolation. So we have to bring it on board other facilities like the Pentecost Church. They give us their facility somewhere in central region. That will help us to manage isolation cases. So that one also helped us to kind of isolate cases that were asymptomatic. And then the next one is about risk communication. Let me say that we are in an era of aggressive communication or social media. And let me say that we are grateful for the media also being supportive. And that's why when we're giving this vaccination, though principally the media is not the first line, but we think that media sets the agenda. So media has generously been part of this exercise, and we have been supporting. And as I said, the fight against COVID is not we and them, it's actually we, all of us. And I think that so far we have been fighting together to address the challenges. So if I want to look at it holistically, Ghana has progressed over the period, and for the first time, there has been a lot of financial support from the central government, from partners, because you cannot address a pandemic without money. So those are the areas that I think that I would say. So if you want to talk about Ghana's progression from March
I will come back to this, Doc. I'll come back to this, Dr. Bekwai. This is very comprehensive, I must say. A very long list. Let me bring in Dr. Kenu, who is Dr. Ernest Kenu. He's a senior lecturer at the Department of Epidemiology and Disease Control at the University of Ghana. Doc, thank you for your time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I was just taking the thoughts of Dr. Bekwai on how we have done, for him to review how we have done when it comes to our handling of COVID-19. And he broke it down for me. I don't know if you heard all that he said, but he was pointing out to the areas that we need to focus on in having this particular discussion. He talks about coordination. He talks about the point of entry. He talks about labs, the existence or the availability of labs. He talks about treatment centers. He talks about communication and then financial support, which sounds to me like very comprehensive. First, what are your thoughts on the way we have managed this? Does it agree with that of, or those of Dr. Bekwai?
Thank you very much. I think Dr. Bekwai touched on the key pillars when it comes to preparedness and response with regard to outbreak in general. So those big principles or pillars are appropriate. And I must say that that's exactly what the country did, ensuring that the coordination, the lab, the surveillance, the rapid response team, the point of entry, the risk management, the risk communication, case management, infection prevention and control, logistic management and procurement, all these things were put in place. So that is one of the reasons why you'll be able to tell that the country was mentioned among the few countries in the world that were doing very well when it comes to COVID response. I think, again, the other thing which we should mention about the country was using data for decision making, particularly when they realized that the infection was quite a little different from what has been known in the past. They looked at the available data. I think Ghana was one of the few countries that did the enhanced surveillance system in terms of contact tracing, moving to the community quite early. And it was one of the reasons why we achieved that much success. So all that he said is appropriate, and that's what the country did over.
It sounds like we did perfectly, and I'm wondering, did we really? Did we? I mean,
I must say, there is something we call after action review. When you respond to an outbreak, afterwards you go back to look at what did we do right, what did we do wrong. No one will say that we had everything 100%. There were things that would have done better on hindsight.
Okay.
But on the average, when you compare what you did with respect to the resources that are available, how you put your team together. Yes, you can rate yourself that you did fairly well, and that's basically what I'm saying. That.
Okay.
And again, as we speak, on a weekly basis, the country meets. The country is meeting, looking at the cases that are coming, thinking through, looking at the data, doing all sort of modeling just to show that are we on top of the issue or will be taken by surprise. Because look at India and the other countries. They were doing fairly well, but suddenly things are out of hand. COVID, nobody will say that you are an expert. You should always keep your eye on the ball for you to be sure that you keep your country safe.
And it's interesting that you mentioned India, because India is actually where we got our first vaccines from. So for anybody to think that this country would have relapsed the way it has, I mean, nobody probably would have thought of it. So you talk about the review of what we did well and what we didn't do well. From your perspective, what can we, or what could we have done better? And we're saying this in the context of preventing or managing future outbreaks.
I think with the first wave, one of the things which obviously came out that we did not do very well from the beginning was engagement of community leaders. But you will notice that when we had the second wave and when we introduced the first wave, that was one of the high points. You saw the king of Ashanti Kingdom coming all out there with his entire troop following him, and they had the person. There's nothing that I'm saying that if the leader of my whole kingdom has taken the vaccine, and this was not done only in Ashanti region, but in all the regions that were having vaccination, you saw the kings, the community leaders, the opinion leaders were part of the team that took the vaccination and helped to break the hesitancy that people had right from the beginning concerning the vaccine. So we knew that we had a challenge in the first wave without engaging them very well. Our community engagement was not the best. But immediately we saw the second wave, and then we had the opportunity to introduce vaccines. They were the first group of people that were brought on board. I keep saying that, remember, when a disease gets into the community, it takes the community to overcome that disease. And so, if we fail to engage the community properly, this disease will not go away. That is why we should go back again, that the community needs to keep doing what we are supposed to do. If we all stop washing our hands, let me go back to India and tell you that what happened. They also started that, the disease is gone. They started their celebration, started their festivities. People stopped wearing the mask, stopped washing their hands, and suddenly, boom. So if Ghana thinks that we are out of the woods and we stop washing our hands, we stop using the face mask, our gatherings are becoming longer hours than expected, then suddenly you just need just a case. Remember, the entire COVID problem in this country were introduced by just 2. So you don't need so many cases before you know that you're going to be in trouble.
Right.
Just one single case can throw us out of control. So we need to make sure that every individual is on board. We keep our eye on this. And I'm glad that WHO has come up with new criteria for monitoring the various thresholds. And this monitoring should not only be done at the national level, but only at the sub-national level. And I'm glad that the last time that we had the EOC meeting, one of the things that was discussed with the EOC meeting, we should look at where are the, even the 1-1 cases, where are they coming from? We should get into those communities and just do some level of sampling and testing the individuals in those communities. Could it be that there's just a tip, the iceberg, that's when we are seeing 1 and 2 cases? And so the country is looking at things we did not do right, and this time making sure that we do it right. But my fear is that the media, please don't stop doing the exercise you are doing. Communication is so important. We forget about communication, we'll be back to square one.
We forget communication, we will be back to square one. And that will be terrible, given the things that we have gone through, even though we are better than many countries, the things that we have gone through. But Doc, you mentioned you said something, I think I'll throw that to Dr. Bekwai, but then Dr. Bequim mentioned the labs, and the testing regime. In that, he said now we have about 40 labs across the country that are testing. Most of them, by the way, are privately owned. From a public health perspective, is that good enough in terms of managing or preventing a future outbreak? Should we have an outbreak right now, people will have to resort to these private labs. That costs money. But you're looking at a population that has many people also living below the threshold or the standards. Dr. Keno, this is for you. From your perspective, does it work that even though we have a lot of labs now, they're mostly privately owned?
So MFA, there are
Gifty here, by the way.
Oh, is it MFA I'm talking to?
It is Gifty, but that's okay.
Oh, so forgive me.
Go ahead.
So Gifty, we use different approaches and different scenarios. Now, ideally, the country should have had all our labs prepared before an outbreak of any sort. These things are done during the preparedness phase.
But how is that possible in a case like COVID-19 where nobody saw it coming?
Oh, by the way, please don't say we didn't see it coming. If we are following the natural trend, we know that every now and then epidemics pop up here and there. And it is up to all of us to make sure that our system becomes more robust. It's not only dependent on government, but it looks at the entire system that we have. And the system starts from the community level, where there's some level of surveillance. So you see something, you say. You've seen that people are having some form of a disease or something which is strange, which is not common. You need to report that. So if the community level's form of surveillance is poor, you notice that the other part will not be falling in place. And so if you are in the state of emergency, you need to look at other pragmatic ways of solving the problem. So government bringing private facilities on board is the right thing to do. Yes, it might cost you, but remember, there are some of them that were doing the test for free because government was providing reagents for them. And in that case, in a pandemic situation, all these facilities that you think will be charging, they will be at a loss because the time will come that they will not even have anything to do. Mm-hmm. Because who will come? Nobody will come. So the more we all put our heads together, solve the problem quickly, we can all go back to a normal state. I'm sure that your institution has been badly affected by COVID, whether you like it either positively or negatively. And that is why you almost always talking about COVID, because you want this to be properly controlled. So the labs that were brought on board, it was a good strategy.
Okay.
Are they making benefits? Some may be making benefits. But the benefit that they are currently making will not outweigh the benefit that the country is getting now. Because imagine we are only using Noguchi. When Noguchi is overwhelmed or KCCR is overwhelmed, what will happen is that there's a possibility of contamination and they themselves getting infected. Can you imagine if we have 5 lab personnel and all the 5 lab personnel get infected with COVID because they are tired and they start getting contamination? You can read about what happened in Liberia concerning Ebola when some of the lab personnel got themselves contaminated. It was purely because they were extremely tired.
Would you suggest, Doc, that government supports these private labs?
Of course, government is supporting them. Probably Dr. Bequim will be the one to respond to, because I know that they were provided with reagents. It's not everything that they are doing from scratch. The training was provided by government. So government is supporting them, but I think that Dr. Bequim will be the best person to provide response to such a question.
Okay, I know you're teaching, so but do hang on for me briefly. Let me get that answer, and then we can wrap up with you so you go back to teach. Dr. Bequim, I just want to find out from you what he said. First, let's start from the support for these labs. We have 40 labs, you say, but he's saying that even if they're making gains at the moment, it will get to a point where they're no longer making that much money. How do we sustain their presence in anticipation of another outbreak as part of our preparedness?
Thank you very much. So let me say that several kind of tests are being done. If you look at the test, now is a kind of mandatory that before you go to another country, you do a test. Yeah. So most of these private labs are actually doing what they call a traveler's test. So it's a bit different from what we call the public health test. Do you understand? Okay. So so if you, let's say if a school, we suspect a school has an outbreak, clearly the samples will be taken and sent to public health labs. So the private labs have a kind of a niche. They do some kind of tests that complements what the public health labs do. There are quite a number of equipment that somehow the government has supported. We do also trainings for the labs so that they conform to our protocol. Okay. And we also have regular trainings and then interactions, because normally we don't have substantial participation of private labs in pandemics, or let's say, but maybe this is the first pandemic, big pandemic. So we think that if you're going to sustain effectiveness, then you need to bring them on board. The only challenge is that at times they need to fully get the cases into our electronic system, and that has been a bit of a challenge. Okay. But with regular engagement, we'll be able to address that system. So far, I think that the presence of the private lab has complemented our existing public health labs, and I think it's not bad for our system.
Let's wrap up this conversation, Dr. Bequin. Dr. Keno indicated that there is the need to, so there are, today I heard that there are 0 cases in places like the Upper East, etc. But there are also cases, although a few, there are still some cases. Dr. Keno suggests that there is a need to, I mean, this presents us an opportunity to go into these communities and do the, tracing to find out where these, even if it's just one, where is that case coming from? Because the country experienced the outbreak through, let's say, 1 or 2 people. Are we doing that? It looks like...
Yeah, so we have a similar system. Hello?
Yes, Doc, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a surveillance system that I would say runs from national, regional, district, and the community level. So somehow we try to engage our persons to be looking out for possible cases, what we call suspected cases, and then as early as possible to bring them to the health facility to be tested. So just 2 days ago, we had a meeting and Dr. Kenu was on. I think he talked about that issue. And we tried to engage the regions to see how best they are actually looking. Because if you do not look, you not find. And clearly they are looking and they are doing some form of contact tracing. So I think that genuinely the case burden is low. But let me say that 2 things have happened in Ghana. One was the Easter. First time we did not spend, there were no conversions. 2 was the Ramadan or the Eid. There was no elaborate festivals or celebrations. And these are the things that led India to have that severe situation. So far as we are conforming to minimize mass gatherings, we are actually minimizing the risk of getting COVID infection.
Okay. Mass gatherings. Let me wrap up. Dr. Keno, let me take your final thoughts on this, the answers that have come to your suggestions as well, and then we call it a wrap.
Yes, so all that I would say is that what we need as a country is to make sure that we strengthen our response, and at the same time, we continue with our preparedness. See, and all this boils down to resources. To prevent any outbreak, it is not cheap. And so our current system, yes, it is not fragile, neither is it a very strong one. But we all need to work very hard to ensure that the system gets stronger. My worry has to do with our current budget season for the year, that we're going to spend more money in curative medicine than prevention. But there's a need for us to start looking at how do we put more resources in prevention, because in the long run, that is what is going to make your country more robust. Because the more you spend money on curative and you don't deal with prevention, remember, the problem with prevention issue is that somebody will pay for it. If we fail to immunize our children now, a child will pay for it with a child's life. Either the child died or something happened. So that is why we need to all come on board to ensure that we have a robust health system.
Okay. And
it requires everybody to work. Communication, the infrastructure, the human resource, the workforce, making sure that the entire system sees the health delivery as one goal. And the outcome is to have a quality service delivery for every single Ghanaian. You don't need to leave your place before you get the best of care. But you have a system in place that when you are unconscious, and that is what I said the last time when I had a discussion with a number of individuals. I was telling them that, listen, in this country, so long as you are conscious or you are vertical, you'll be able to move through everything. But when you get unconscious, that is when you understand the importance of a functional system. It is you only get to see the importance of that system when you are unconscious, because when anyone gets unconscious, it's the system that takes care of you.
Right.
But the way we are running, if we are not careful, we'll get to a place that when we get unconscious, our system cannot survive or cannot sustain us. And that's why we need everybody on board. We need to make sure that we support every single pillar under that component. Okay. And I mentioned the pillar, which I'll end by saying that we need to make sure that the pillar of coordination, lab system, the rapid response team, risk assessment, point of entry, case management, infection prevention and control, logistics, procurement and supply, all these are taking good care of. Right. Then you and I can comfortably sit in our rooms, watch television, and when there's a problem, they call you, your auntie is not feeling well. You're not worried because you know that
the system will take care of them.
We'll be able to take care of it.
Interesting. Interesting. Dr. Keno, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Ernest Keno there, he's an epidemiologist with the University of Ghana, joining us there. But Dr. Asiedu Bekwim, let's take your final words on this one as well.
Yes, thank you very much. I think that you want to commend Ghanaians for sticking together to try and address this big hurdle. It's not over yet, but I think that if we continue to stick together, adhering to the protocols, then we are likely to overcome the challenge. We want to employ all Ghanaians that we are doing vaccination. We don't have the right numbers yet, so we still need to make sure that we are wearing our mask regularly. We need to make sure we are maintaining our social distancing. We need to make sure that we are washing our hands with soap and water. Then we can be sure that we can overcome the threat of COVID. So we want to wish all Ghanaians the very best, and let's fight together to defeat COVID. Thank you very much.
But the point still remains that the mass gatherings, it's a very dangerous thing to do if you want to prevent COVID-19. Those are my takeaways. Doc, thank you so much for your time. Mass gatherings, certainly a dangerous thing to do if you want to prevent COVID-19 spread. And as Dr. Keno said, you don't need too many cases for it to spread around. As our cases started with just 2. And that's the point I want you to take home with you this afternoon. I'd love to hear from you once again. 0540-109-009. Dr. Asiedu Bekwim there, you heard him over there. Let me move away from this story whilst we pledge that we'll keep ourselves safe. The National Association of Ghana Students, NUCS, is calling on the Achimota school to rescind its decision to appeal the Accra High Court ruling directing them to allow 2 Rastafarian boys to attend the school with their dreadlocks. The school has indicated its decision to appeal the court ruling, but NUCS General Secretary Julius Kwame Anthony describes the step as discrimination against the boys.
The actions of Achimota school create a needless gridlock which leaves these students shut out of the educational stream, which in the midst of this impasse is moving on without them. The unyielding position taken by the school, enough to make them pursue the appeal even after a court ruling that the boys be admitted, leave much to be desired. What this issue represents is a classic case of discrimination where a minority is treated as a second-class citizen within a state which they must enjoy all rights due them like all other citizens do. It's a woeful scar on our democracy that at this point, a student should be dragged through this quagmire in a bid to access education which he qualifies for, simply because the said institution does not regard his identity and alienates him for simply being who he is. What does anyone else have to lose if another person who is different from them, different from the larger majority of Ghanaians, is given the opportunity to access education in an institution that has produced African leaders who dared to be different?
Father of one of the boys, Terrio Magai, is appealing to Achimota to let bygones be bygones. He wants the boys to be allowed to receive an education.
If you had the opportunity to be in the same room with Achimota school management, what would be the one thing you will put across to them so to end this whole hula baloo?
Well, I think what a child can do, how smart a child is, plays a role, and it's very important, and it's about the mind and not the hairs. And if they said Achimota has produced great people, then they should know this is a great guy, So they should just let bygones be bygones and have the kids, go to school and start their studies.
Meanwhile, Tyrone Magai tells JoyNews the two things he will do if the school admits him.
So I think they should, because when I'm to go there, they are going to teach me. So I think they need to do what's right, and besides, what's right is too obvious. You took a case to the court, and the case was too obvious of how it was going to end, and eventually they end that way. We should just let bygones be bygones and let's just move on as people in life. To maintain this cohesion as individuals of Ghana.
So what would be the first thing you do in case you get into the school, you are admitted? What would be a thing? How would you feel? What would you do?
The first thing I'll do? Okay, I think there might be two things I'll do. Probably take some pictures and two, I'll walk around the whole campus to see if I'm really in that school, because it's a bit complicated. I wouldn't believe it straight away, even if I'm to walk into that school as a student, because it would be unbelievable. So I'll first check around the surroundings, ask a few questions to really make sure that I'm inside that school. I guess that's one of the most things I would want to do, try out.
Tyrone Magai there. Meanwhile, Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame has revealed that Achimota School has already filed a stay of execution after meeting the Education Ministry and management of the school, including the board. He has asked that they withdraw the stay and admit the children. He expects that to be done. The school has agreed to do so and enroll the student. The state, in principle, holds the view that a pronouncement by a higher court will help streamline the matter and not open the floodgates. He explains why in an interview with Evans Mensah.
Gates theory, which means that this could open the floodgates for everybody else to sort of come and make these claims. And I've had those on the other side of this theory suggest that this case was purely a religious, an attempt to enjoy religious rights. And if you come to the school and you say, well, I just want to put a towel around my waist because it's my tradition, it may not necessarily be a reflection of the outcome of this case, because they went to demonstrate that Rastafarianism is a religion and it's a constitutional right there to enjoy the fruits of that religious rights. Did you see the distinction there?
No, I don't see the distinction at all, because it's not only religious rights that ought to be respected or created in schools. There's also the right to exercise a person's culture. You cannot take away from the person the right to live his life in the manner in which he desires. The long-standing rules and regulations recognized and enforced by schools in the country may have to be reformed. It may open the floodgates to the acceptance of various lifestyles by schools, to the extent that the decision is paid or is hinged on human rights. It implies that adherence to a certain lifestyle or custom or culture of a certain persons, perhaps will have to prevail over the relevant rules and regulations applicable in schools throughout the country. That is what I'm saying has a very far-reaching implication. And for such a decision, you cannot just leave it at the High Court. After all, this decision is not binding on the High Court itself. It's not binding on the High Court differently constituted. So you can have another High Court constituted by a different justice taking a different view of the matter. They already know which way to go, so it can lead to uncertainty. And I think that there's a need clearly to have a clear, definitive pronouncement on the matter, the extent to which certain practices claim to be religious or claim to be even cultural or to be recognized and accepted in schools. So it's not just a matter of Rastafarians being permitted to wear locks or not. What about the traditionalists who also want to exist that his culture enjoins him to walk barefooted? What about it's accepted in schools? So it's not just a matter of Rastafarians being permitted to wear locks or not. What about the traditionalists who also want to exist that his culture enjoins him to walk barefooted? What about the traditionalists who also insist that according with the tenets of this custom, is supposed to just wrap a cloth around his waist, even if the person is male. And for that matter, the school cannot restrict the manner in which it dresses. It really have implications for whether school uniforms ought to be enforced. Because if I was one insist that I do not have to wear school uniforms on account of a certain factor here or are you saying that that ought not to be permitted? That definitely will be discriminatory. So we ought to really see the soundness of it. I was not in court, so I've not seen the ruling, and I therefore have advised that I obtain a copy of the ruling before I examine the soundness or otherwise. Either way, it's not a situation. I think that the merits of it will have to be tested. So I've had the base on record that it is that has far-reaching implications. And there are many people who are also opposed to the ruling, and many concerns of these eminent citizens of the country. And for me, I think that if a decision of that nature has to be applied, then clearly it must be subjected to the test of the course in the higher echelons of the judiciary architecture. And I say so because the High Court constitutes the first step in the judicial architecture. Above the High Court are the Court for Appeal and the Supreme Court. So I think that is not the end of the matter. It should be a soundness or otherwise it definitely has to be tested. We have to have a more definitive pronouncement on the merits of the matter by a higher court in the Superior Court of Judicial Architecture.
Attorney General Godfred Yeboah Dame, speaking to Evans Mensah, that interview will be aired also, the full interview will be aired on PM Express later tonight. But I take it to Parliament now. NDC MP Mahama Yariga says he disagrees with calls on Parliament to reject the approval of Charles Edupuahene as Minister of State at the Finance Ministry. The Bogatanga East MP Isaac Adongo wants Parliament, as you know, to reject Mr. Edupuahene for conflict of interest, as he puts it. The MP claims Mr. Edupuahene's private firm Black Stars Brokerage, Ken Oforiatta's Data Bank and other firms have earned more than 850 million cedis in fees from government loans since the NPP won power. But Mr. Yariga says the claim will be difficult to prove.
At the Minister of Finance will put him in a situation where he will unduly benefit from that trade. I think basically that is what the concern is. And he sought to say that, look, it is the Bank of Ghana that really chose those who are in that business, not the Ministry of Finance, even though it is the decision of the Minister of Finance to raise funds, but then the whole process is managed by the private sector, chosen by the Bank of Ghana. But unfortunately for him, he was also on the board of the Bank of Ghana. He was on the board of the Bank of Ghana. So again, he is there on the board of the Bank of Ghana. Now, the point he makes is that, look, the whole process for procuring is independent of them. It's transparent, merit-based. That's what the statement from the Minister of Finance sought to say.
Do you agree on that?
Merit-based system. If I don't have evidence to prove to the contrary, is that okay? I will have to agree with that. But then the key issue in conflict of interest situations, especially in the international finance market or even local finance market, is the danger of insider trading, where as an insider you have information about the market and whether or not you will not use that information to your personal advantage. Notionally, they have all left their companies. They are not on the board, they are not in management, they are shareholders. But can you really physically construct a wall that separates them from their companies?
You think there's that real risk? You think there's that real risk?
There's some level of risk. There's some level of risk. The question really is whether we can prove it. Our constitution is not too tight on that. Is that okay? Don't place yourself in a situation where there's a potential of conflict of interest. Now, how do we determine that there's a potential of conflict of interest? Who is the determinant of that? Does it have to be the court? Can a committee come to that conclusion? And etc. But then the point is that for me,
criminal investigation possibly, if there is that suspected incident going into the future.
For me, we've already approved the finance minister, who is similarly situated. So personally, I may think it would be unfair not to approve him under similar circumstance, unless we are recalling the finance minister, both of them, and say, both of you fall into the same category, and we as a committee have been able to come to a conclusion that there's a real likelihood that you will benefit from insider information. And so we want you to, relinquish your post or, completely do away with your shares in the business. In some jurisdictions, public officers similarly situated have been forced to, do away with their shares and take their cash and go and then invest it in some other business. But here, have we gotten to that level where there is even a risk of it? Not that we've even established that it has happened, but where there's a risk of it. Do we want to set the standard to that level where you must dispose of your shares in the business so that that risk is completely obliterated? So that's the situation. But really, strictly speaking, legally, the basic rules of conflict of interest only request that you declare the interest. Is that okay? That the process of procuring the services of a company should be transparent.
Mahamayaga speaking to my colleague Joseph Obukugakpo, who, by the way, will be joining us shortly to give us a brief of what is happening in Parliament so far. We were expecting 4 of the deputy ministerial nominees to be vetted today. Obi Amwa, who is deputy ministerial nominee for local government and decentralization, is at the moment defending his appointments there in Parliament. I want to take you there briefly. We'll be right back.
Implementation of the Medium-Term National Development Policy Framework, Annual Progress Report 2019. And in paragraph 39, it is reported that most MMDAs spent the highest share of their revenue, the total revenue that they had in 2019, on recurrent expenditure. In fact, the report indicates that in Ashanti region, the MMDAs in Ashanti region spent 90% of their total revenues on recurrent expenditure, leaving just 10% for capital expenditure. And when you look at the figures, Ashanti region was first, followed by Northern region 80.6%, then OT region 80.5%, then Greater Accra 76.7%. But we know the common fund, as part of their revenue, is meant for development. You're also aware of the DDF. So how can we contain or correct this? I mean, stop this. It is affecting the development of the localities. How do we address it?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know the report you are holding. Honorable Eric.
Development Policy Framework. Annual Progress 2019. National Development Planning Commission.
It's a planning commission report.
Yes.
Yes.
And you have a copy.
Yes. Indeed, it's a challenge in some areas, but we need to validate the figures. I'm not doubting the figures at all. But if we were to spend 90% on recurring expenditure, that means that they will have nothing to show. It's something that, this is a 2019 report, it's something that the ministry should still be addressing. And I think that I'll inform the minister that this is a major issue which has been raised here. I'm sure he's already been briefed, but they know the implications of not complying with the budget, either for the DPAT or for the common fund. And indeed, it's interesting, but now people want to be appointed as MMDCs, chief executive. Some of these things may even go against them. They may, because I don't have the authority to say that this will go against them. I say may even go against them, because if adverse reports like this are really used.
Obiamwa is a ministerial nominee for local government and decentralization. Let's go to Parliament. My colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is standing by to give us a wrap of what's been happening so far. Hello, Joseph. I know you hear me.
Good afternoon to you.
Right. Good afternoon, Joseph. Do tell us what Mr. Dubois and Benito Owusu-Bio have been saying in a nutshell.
Well, there's been a lot of focus on the role that Black Stars Brokerage has played in Ghana going onto the international market to raise funds over the years, and the claim that's come from Isaac Adongo, the MP for Bolgatanga East, that it's a case of conflict of interest, based on which he thinks Mr. Dubois' approval should be rejected by Parliament. And Mr. Dubois has been explaining that this is a firm that he established back in 2007 thereabout. This is a firm that actually got into the international bond market space following recommendations by the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. He went on to make the point that when it comes to the recruitment of some of these firms to help with the bond processes as far as Ghana's raising of funds are concerned, the decisions and approvals are actually decisions that are taken by the Bank of Ghana on the firms that should be leading some of those processes. So he essentially denied any possible situation of conflict of interest from his role as Deputy Finance Minister, and even going forward with his role as Minister of State at the Finance Ministry. You know, Mr. Adongo had alleged that more than 865 million cedis had been raised by these firms in helping governments arrange some of these fundings. And for him, him going into the role will not result in any conflict of interest, although the company that does some of these businesses is a company that he owns. And a number of the MPs went back and forth on that with him, from Mr. Ayarega to Mr. James Agalga and a number of others in the course of the vetting. He's also been responding to questions on Ghana's debt situation, which he thinks is not as terrible as the picture has been painted by some of the analysts, and he makes the point that he looks forward to his role as Minister of State at the Finance Ministry to help the President deliver on his agenda. Mr. Owusu-Bio has also been addressing questions around illegal mining, the depletion of forest, and a number of related questions. And he's been speaking of government efforts at afforestation, including the thousands of trees that have been planted as a result of the role that the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources have played over the years. You know, he has served as deputy minister there, and he is going back into that position. He thinks the track record in terms of tree planting has been good over the years. He's also been talking about how government plans to create a situation where salt and other mineral resources are explored for the benefit of ordinary members of the nation, rather than a focus on gold and some of those highly priced assets. And he's also been indicating that government's commitment to helping deal with the illegal mining situation is something that's very much on the high side going forward, and he will play his role in helping ensure that governments pull brakes on illegal mining activities. We have Obi Amoa, one of the two deputy ministers for local government in the seat at the moment, after which we are expecting Augustine Collins in team, who is the second deputy minister designate for that particular position, and then he would be the final person to be vetted today before the committee rounds up.
Joseph, as usual, very comprehensive. Thank you very much for those details. There, we look forward to Obi Amoa's vetting, and then the final one, and tomorrow we'll have another set. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, the parliamentary correspondent, bringing us up to speed. Joseph, thank you. Now, some were born disabled, others suffered the condition in the course of their lives and struggled to adjust to the physical and emotional pain. Kwachi is one of such persons who has been left alone to struggle after being knocked down by a hit-and-run driver. My colleague Judith Awachitando visited his residence. Here is her report.
Dreams shattered, hopes displaced, a life of constant pain and sadness. This is the story of 24-year-old Joshua Kwachi. Joshua was not born with a disability, but on one night on the Legon-Medina highway, his life would change forever.
So we're here at the residence of Joshua Kwachi, here in New Achimota. It's been 3 good years since he was knocked down by a hit-and-run driver, and since then he's been paralyzed and left indoors. Let's go and have a look at his current situation.
Joshua lives alone in a small rented room down the basement of the building. He spends most of his day moaning in pain.
Agoa. Joshua, how are you? I'm fine as well. And so this is the room in which Joshua lives. As you can see, it's not in too much of a good condition, and he's really struggling, evidently. Really struggling.
Life has not been easy for Joshua. He's unable to move on his own or do anything without help. Sadly, the room in which he sleeps has no bathroom or toilet. Joshua has no other choice than to sleep in the same room with fecal matter and urine stored for weeks in buckets and bowls.
Every day I'm going through pain. It's very bad. I always cry, and all I do is to pray to God. Apart from that, nothing else. I don't bath, but I clean myself. Nah, please, I live alone. And as for toilet issue, I have a pail there, so I'll use that pail and I'll put it down, unless maybe I have some guy who has been helping me, so when he has time, then he will come and throw it away for me.
Getting food to eat is more than a hurdle for Joshua every day.
It's like, you know that you don't have, so you don't think about even food. When you have it, you eat it. When you don't have, you just live like the way you are. So when I have, I eat. Yeah. When I don't have, I'll just be there. Maybe I can be there 4 days, 3 days, car, no food, no water. Yeah. So things are very hard. And always I'm going through pain because of my back where I had an injury. So I'm in pain always.
Can you tell us where exactly you feel the pain?
My spine, my backbone. Yeah.
How does it look like?
Like it's like the bone is coming out.
An NGO called Wipe Your Tears Foundation has been helping Joshua for some weeks now. Although they have been able to provide some basic amenities, such as food, his most pressing need, which is medical care, has been a big challenge for the organization. Nicholas Ayiba is founder of Wipe Your Tears Foundation.
The issue is that he had an accident and the spinal cord has been infected. So right now, as I'm talking to you, the spinal cord has, twisted from where the original position here. So right now, they need to do a surgery before it can be done. And then, according to the doctors, they can do something about the spinal cord, but it involves a lot of money, which the family thinks they cannot afford. So they just abandon a guy like that. The money involved, I spoke to one doctor and he told me we are looking for it to spend about 80,000, not Ghana cedis, euros. Yes, please.
Joshua's only wish is to be able to walk again. He's pleading with the public to help foot his medical bills.
I need help. Yes, financial help. I need money for my surgery and my hospital bills. Yeah, I really need money. I need help. Please, I need help.
It's been a sad scene to watch. Right here in the basement where Joshua lives. One thing that you might not see through the screens is that due to the fact that there's no toilet here and he has to keep all the fecal matter and urine in buckets, right here in the same room he sleeps, you can imagine the type of stench that is in this room currently, and it's really not easy for him. So Joshua really needs your help.
Until help is offered, Joshua continues to struggle in constant pain. Judith Owotretando, JoyNews.
Your help for Joshua is welcome. And that's it for this hour. Let's talk showbiz is how we wrap it all up so you can have some fun. But there is more news at myjoyonline.com. If you do log on, Edubuahin contradicts Finance Ministry on Black Star brokerage advisory role. Our top story right there for you. Kenya detains Ghanaian accused of Sakawa. That story also has been trending, has been widely read, and no military officer has seized any gold from illegal miners, according to Dominic Nitiwu, the defense minister. And opinion leaders 10 on prophetess who assisted couple to bury son alive. These are stories that are most read. You want to take a look at it and share it with your contacts as well so they know what's happening. My name is Gifty Ando Apiale.